So, we've got a very, very special squad, homie. A lot of you probably haven't been here since literally day one, but this is literally a squad day one. A former host of the Back of the Bus podcast, Mr. Alex Cover, a long ass time ago, about 2-3 years ago, we had a conversation about Jay-Z joining forces with the NFL after the whole Kaepernick situation. If you could, Alex, kind of explain your side of things, at least as it pertains to specifically that.
Well, at that time, and you forgot to mention, it was a very calm conversation that we had about Jay-Z and the NFL. It was a very calm conversation.
It was not.
At that time, at least what we knew was that we didn't know a lot. All we knew was that Jay-Z and the NFL had partnered together. There's going to be some kind of an entertainment deal that involved a couple charity organizations and I think a Super Bowl halftime show. But that was the extent of what we knew at that time. And at least when they advertised it, it was geared towards to help, racial divide, whatever. At least that's what the headline said.
So it's been at least a couple years since then. As it pertains to specifically the Super Bowl halftime show, we've seen Shakira and J-Lo. We've seen Travis Scott. We've seen The Weeknd. And now we're going to see Kendrick Lamar and Dr. Dre and some other people.
Some of the black elites in music.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But as it pertains to the other side of this conversation, which was supposed to be funding for different initiatives in the community, much more awareness initiatives and things of that nature. As of right now, do you feel like the NFL has held up their part of the bargain as it pertains to just the conversation that was had with Jay-Z?
Well, for starters, I don't know what their bargain was, but I will say whatever they said was going to happen, I can't in good conscience say that they've held up to whatever that standard is. Since time has passed, like you said, 2-3 years ago, I think we can look at this and say this is one of those, I'll give you a little dance and then we'll move on to what we normally do. Business as usual. That's kind of what this looked like. They've done this in the past. Other leagues have done this in the past. They'll link themselves to a celebrity or a movement, and they'll kind of do something with that organization or that person. And for the moment, it will kind of hold the tide for a little bit so that they can continue on with whatever they're doing. And I mean, I can't say that didn't happen because there's really no proof otherwise. Not that I've gone searching, but I haven't heard anything about whatever organizations. I know we got some stickers out of it. I know we got the end racism in the end zone.
Do they really have end racism in the end zones now?
I could be mistaken, but there might be a patch. But yeah, that's probably the extent of what we've gotten.
Okay, so first of all, I'm petty, so I told you so. Right? Number one. First and foremost, I told you so. Hold on. First of all, I told you so. Second of all, because I'm sure you'll be able to expand on my next question. I understand where you stand now with the NFL, right? In terms of how they have or haven't materialized anything through this quote unquote relationship that they have with Hove. How does that make you feel now about coming from where you were or where your perspective was coming into this? Let's see what comes out of this. What is your viewpoint now of that relationship from Jay-Z's perspective now?
Disappointed. And I could say for the very first time that I'm disappointed in his role that he played because he was used. And there's probably financial gain on his end. So financially he probably doesn't feel it as much, but from a social perspective, he was used. And I'm disappointed that happened to him. But I will say my earlier point was never, hey, this is going to work, just wait. All I said was, we don't know a lot, just wait. My other point was, there's different ways of going about it. Now, did I think generations of systemic racism in professional sports would be ended by an entertainment deal.
No, of course not. Of course not. No.
I didn't think that was going to be ended by an entertainment deal. I didn't think a halftime show was going to do it. No, but I was going to kill him for at least making an attempt that I didn't know nothing about. I'm like, all right, well, we can give this a couple of years to see what's going to happen. That was my stance at the time. Time has passed. Ain't nothing happened really. Only worse stuff has probably come out since then.
Yeah, we're about to get into that for sure. I guess from my perspective, even when I seen it back then a couple years ago, knowing what I know now, I've come to the absolute conclusion that capital gains and progress do not go together. And often when people try to convince you that them making more money or them increasing their own personal wealth is beneficial to you, they're lying to you. They're just lying to you. Like there's really nothing complicated about it. Capital and progress do not go together. They don't. Your personal progress, absolutely. Your personal and economic health, yeah, absolutely. But if you are talking about progress for all, there is no situation where you're talking about getting richer and helping people at the same time. That doesn't exist. It just doesn't. It doesn't. There may have been a brief moment in Amazon's history where they were at a perfect intersection of making a lot of money and helping and solving a lot of people's problems. But then even then you had a whole bunch of employee rights issues going on behind that. So like, are they really serving people? Right? There is no situation that I see. Certainly I can be proven wrong, but where someone is going to be personally enriching themselves, but also doing something for the betterment for the most people. That just doesn't go along with each other. So even the premise that somehow Jay-Z having a cozy relationship with the NFL was somehow going to affect us, outside of the NFL, I thought was a stretch. On top of that, he didn't seem to even care about the social implications within the NFL when he was coming in. You know what I'm saying? It didn't seem to be at the height of his concerns, even at the beginning of it. What was the first thing he said? I think we're past kneeling.
Yeah, and we're done.
Let's move on. Everybody thought he was saying, well, no, let's move on to more productive things. No, he means literally like, let's hang that shit up. Let's hang it up.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think he was saying that? You're saying he was saying that to move on, right?
I think Jay-Z's role in all of that was to kind of calm down the conversation or the racial tensions around the NFL at the time. So Jay-Z, who is a trusted member in our community, right? He's been stamped for these type of social justice endeavors. He's done the work to a certain degree, right? So he's validated. So if Jay-Z gets in front of the microphone with Roger Goodell at his side and says we need to stop talking about this, that carries weight. I think that was the purpose. Many people took it as, well, he means let's be more productive. Let's move on to more actionable items. And if that were the case, I would have been the first one sitting up here saying that that's what he meant, because he proved it. What he proved is that, no, he actually meant what he said. Let's stop. Let's let all of that die. Let's.
For his own capital gain.
Right, so that he could have a better position. I don't know if he's trying to buy a team or what, but the only gains that I saw out of that relationship so far have been personal. What are your thoughts on Brian Flores, this whole situation that they're going through now?
I'm proud of dude. He's been called the Colin Kaepernick of coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about a guy who inherited pretty much a bad team when he started with the Dolphins. Didn't have the greatest start to a season, but turned it around. I think they won their last 7 of their 9 games,
mm-hmm.
which, I mean, from a coaching perspective, he had a very successful season, almost made the playoffs with the team that he had, which was not a great team, by the way. He won the locker room, and from a fan, we look at that and we see, okay, there's hope in the future. Let's bring this guy back, get some pieces, we're on the upper trend.
So what was the record again? I'm sorry.
They were what? They won 10 games in one of the last 2 seasons, and they won 9 games. I think the other season. I think it was
So
10.
He's been there 2 seasons.
No, he's been there 3 seasons.
One of them was a 10-win season. The other one was a 9-win season.
His first season, they had a losing season. It was like 5 win season.
But the next 2 were over 9 wins apiece.
Yeah,
Okay.
The first season was a losing season. The second 2 were winning seasons.
Okay.
I mean, generally speaking, we're not talking about he took over the Patriots and had a 9-loss season. He took over Miami, and they're not the laughing stock the last couple of seasons, in part because of whatever he set up.
So what do you have to say about the fact that he specifically won despite the fact that the owner himself was paying him to lose?
That was the craziest part of this whole story to me, is that they straight up pay them to lose. Yeah.
And to be honest, I still don't know too much about that part. I mean, I've seen the headlines, but I didn't read about it. So he gets fired, and we're all looking around like, okay, what's wrong? Like, is it because he's black? Is it because of whatever? What's wrong? Because we can't look at the stats and be like, oh yeah, he needed to be fired. Of all the coaches that need to be fired in the NFL, he wasn't the one that needed to be fired. And so then I think it was a week later, they said Brian did this. He was this to the coaching staff. He was this to the players. He wouldn't listen to this, and he was. They would give all these stories of like, you know, he flipped off the coffee boy. You know, like it just all these stories would come out, and you're like, where is this coming from? Basically, stopping him, honestly, from getting any kind of gainful employment in the NFL in the future because they pretty much burned this guy.
They blackballed him. They did the same thing to him that they did to Kaepernick, and I think the way in which Flores is going about it in comparison to Colin Kaepernick, when Colin Kaepernick started his crusade, he removed himself from public life. He didn't do the media rounds. He wasn't on everybody's talk show talking about it. And when he brought litigation against the NFL, he continued to stay bunkered down. You only saw him a few times when he was trying to get his workout underway. When he spoke to the media then, the interviews after the games, and that was pretty much it. Couple IG posts by him and his wife, and that's it. He wasn't out here doing interview tours, and I'm not begrudging Brian Flores for going about it that way because that's how he deems his case has the best chance. My point is that it's interesting that when Kaepernick was going about it the way that he did, trying to stay out of the public, but at the same time using his platform to protest, they demonized him. They said he was a distraction, this, that, and the third and the other. Now, if you notice, the tone, the reactionary tone to Brian Flores is so much more inviting. It's so much more inviting and understanding, and from voices that you don't expect it to hear it from. Straight up, when it was Colin Kaepernick on ESPN, everybody was either divided or clearly on the other side of Kaepernick. A lot of people that you expected to be on Kaepernick's side, right? On all of these media outlets, Ray Lewis, Michael Vick, Marcellus Wiley, right? Stephen A. Smith, all of these guys willfully lining up to serve up Colin Kaepernick and his disdain for police violence against blacks in America, right? Serving him up to the people who want to see him shut up and go away, right? They assisted in the narrative. Now they're not doing that. You know why? Because we killed him for the last 3 or 4 years for doing it.
Yeah, it's the Rodney King OJ thing where LA absolutely got destroyed because of Rodney King. The following year, OJ gets off because they didn't want that to happen again.
And you know what? That's a good point. That's a good point. What I was getting at with it is that's how we have to continue to hold people accountable, because there's no way in hell Brian Flores has the support that he does across the landscape. He has NFL voices that are on his side. Mm-hmm. Marvin Lewis came out and corroborated some of the claims that Brian Flores made, that things that he's experienced being in the NFL. Faux interviews, being told to tank, all of that. Hugh Jackson, same thing. Mm-hmm. Hugh Jackson spoke out against Kaepernick when he was protesting. Mm-hmm. Hugh Jackson himself was against Kaepernick when he was protesting, when he was the coach for the Browns. Now Hugh Jackson is a social justice warrior hopping on the train with Brian Flores. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen by chance. It happens because Hugh Jackson felt the brunt of what he said publicly about Kaepernick when that was going. Ain't no way he said that stuff and didn't have to feel it back home. That's how it has to be, because this is the clearest example of they said they wanted Kaepernick to go about it a different way. Brian Flores is doing it every way they said they didn't want Colin Kaepernick to do it. And I ain't seen nobody line up to fix their mouth to say Brian Flores is wrong. Nobody.
Yeah, he's a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, nobody's willing to die on that hill. You know why? Because a lot of people took PR hits from being against Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. The old white guys don't care. They don't care. They'll survive it all.
Right.
But y'all in our community, that is what connects this situation to me back to the Jay-Z thing. I think if people would have gone into it a little bit more like how they said that they were going into the election with Vice President Harris and President Biden, oh, we gonna hold them accountable. We gonna stay on them. We gonna hold them accountable. We gonna hold them accountable. If y'all had actually held that man accountable, and I'm not speaking directly to you, Alice, right now, but instead of making excuses for Jay-Z in the moment, as we see the BS setting up, hold him accountable.
You said it earlier. He's stamped in this culture. We had no reason to think this man that spent however so many decades doing this would take an action that would lead to this. Biden, on the other hand, to fit your metaphor, I mean, I don't know any personal Biden lovers that just, oh, he's proven he's got. No one was saying that. But Jay-Z, they're like, no, this is Jay. He's gonna find a way. And it was just trust. It was trust.
I think the connection there is that people had trust. At least people in our community had trust in the Democratic Party, and so to see the party kind of. Well, really what they did was screw over Bernie Sanders. But to see the party coalesce behind one person, they were signaling to us, this is the guy. You know what I mean? Like they were signaling to us like, this is him. This is how we beat Trump. Get behind him and everything will be okay, essentially. Now, at least I heard people on the left at that point saying, yeah, Biden and Harris may not be the ticket that I want, but I'll elect them because I don't want Trump, and then I'll I'll hold them accountable afterwards. Now, has there been a whole lot of accountability? That's a different conversation for another day. But they at very least went into it with a jaded eye. Like, okay, you're not what I wanted, but I'm going to hold you accountable. We just didn't get that, and I understand that Jay-Z, like I said, he was been rubber stamped in the community. But when that goes unchecked, you leave yourself open to be fooled. We all know that there are plenty of people that look like us that's not for us. And with that, they will send people to speak to us to convince us of moving certain ways or doing certain things. That's why you see everybody at the fucking Hillary Clinton rallies every 4 years. All the celebrities, the Jay-Z, Beyonce's, Oprah's. That's why they there. That's what they're there for.
Do we want to change when it comes to any professional league? It has to hit them where it hurts. This has to come from ESPN. This has to come from ABC. This has to come from CBS. When they stop doing that, when they stop showing games or whatever it looked like from a broadcasting standpoint, I can't remember who it was. It was like Nike took money out of away from some organization and they kind of turned things around. You got to hit them where it hurts. It has nothing to do with an individual. They're partners. That's where it has to come from, honestly.
I concur. I think that's absolutely right. I think it's a false premise to expect people with money, first of all, to act with outside of their self-interest. Number one, all these social programs that we want, all of these systemic changes that we want to happen in the government is going to cost money, right? And ultimately, it involves wealthy people paying their fair share and not just skirting tax law or using loopholes to pay an effective tax rate that's lower than all of ours sitting here now, right? So we can't expect rich people to do things that are not in their interest, number one. We also can't expect celebrities to carry the weight for the movements that we want to see come to fruition, like you said. hit them where it hurts. I love that idea, because why don't we start turning some of this attention to some of their corporate partners, like the ESPN, like the Defense Department, who does the flyovers every week, every Sunday, right? Which is basically just free military propaganda. Start going after the institutions that support the NFL. Bud Light, do you support the fact that there is one black NFL coach and no black owners? Do you support the dynamic of old, rich white men owning teams of a league that's 70% black and Hispanic? Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with those dynamics? Because we're getting closer and closer to plantation owner and young bucks and mandingos than we have ever been in the NFL.
Well, literally, the one owner said, it's like the prison mates running the asylum.
Because that it's not only the optics, it's the reality.
Yeah.
Every single owner, you have the one guy, I think of the owner of the Jaguars is Middle Eastern, yeah. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then you've only got now, literally as of the last couple weeks, 2 black GMs.
So every corporate partner that the NFL has, Gatorade, Bud Light, all of those guys, right? Why do we not have the leverage to go to them and say, is this what you support?
Because so many of our people still support the
NFL. Because the football games and the individual teams, I'm not gonna lie to you, man, the setup of the NFL is ingenious. It's ingenious. I'm going to put a team in every major city in the Midwest and on the coast. I'm going to make the league tribal, right? So now you have an emotional connection. It's a regional connection. You have ties to that team that extend beyond the umbrella of the NFL. You have players that have gone to your favorite college that now play for that college team. Maybe even people that people from your hometown. Mm-hmm. You've probably, your family, your father and your grandfather probably all grew up in that city watching that team. There's a history for it now. Now I've given you something to love and hone and make it your own, while I fill the team up with all your black children and I give them unfair revenue splits and unfair working conditions.
Yeah.
And no guaranteed contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That is ingenious. Because then you begin to defend the very system that is oppressing you.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that NFL players are oppressed necessarily, but there is the context of the fact that there are all white owners except for one, and of a majority black league that cannot be ignored.
I would agree.
And it's only getting worse. There are less black coaches in the NFL than there were last year, and there were only 3.
Yeah, and you gotta be Mike Tomlin just to keep a job in the NFL.
I seen a quote from John Thompson, Georgetown's old coach, right? And they were having some sort of roundtable discussion. This was way back. This was like in the 90s. But what he said is that, okay, to paraphrase it, he said that he got tired of having to be perfect to apply for a position. Right? So many white coaches get opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to fail and to be bad at a job so that they can later find one that fits and be good. Right? They're allowed the levity to fail early on to get better. But a black coach has to already be perfect. He has to be a rising star. He has to be a generational type winner for you to give him his shot. And for him to exist in this pantheon of football with all the other greats. He has to be spotless. Coaches like fucking Sean Payton with his one Super Bowl appearance. One will always be in head coaching discussions until the day he retires. It doesn't matter what team has an opening. He will be in the discussion every single time. Sean Payton, who has a career that can't be held to Tomlin's. You cannot hold Sean Payton's career to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin has won a Super Bowl and been to, 3?
Yeah, and he's had 0 losing seasons in the time that he's been with the Steelers, and that's with or without a quarterback.
Here's the crazy
The Saints
thing
have
about
picked in
that.
the lottery before.
Here's the crazy thing about that. If, now that Ben Roethlisberger is retired, if he doesn't find a replacement, he might be on the chopping block himself, despite being
that good for so long.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, he hasn't had a quarterback in 3 seasons, but I see your point by all means. And I don't know if y'all saw it, but there was this huge push to get Mike Tomlin to take on the job, I think USC.
Yeah. He's like, there isn't a booster check big enough. Well, unfortunately, Mike, there doesn't have to be a booster's check.
Even that, there's racial tones to that.
Yeah, no, he's potentially on the chopping block, and obviously other black coaches themselves are getting fucked out of their positions. So,
like, would you ever rumor Bill Belichick to take a college job?
No.
At what point in Bill Belichick's tenure as a head coach of the New England Patriots would it have been appropriate for you to speculate about him leaving his NFL job?
No, Bill Belichick
to go
can have
coach
any job he wants ever.
To go coach a college job. You know who the longest tenure coach behind Bill Belichick is in the NFL? It's Mike Tomlin. We thank Alex for coming through and discussing both of these topics with us. Love to have him back anytime. Give us your thoughts and comments on both of these situations. I know the Jay-Z one is a little outdated, but the Brian Flores situation is still fresh. Give us your thoughts and comments below.
And make sure you subscribe, because we like to talk about things like this pretty much all the time, especially as it pertains to injustice in sports. But we've also got a playlist full of sports clips for you to check out as well, so make sure you check that out.